And welcome everybody to another edition of the GSMC Sports Podcast brought to you by the GSMC Sports Network. As always, I'm your host Kenneth Grunfelder, and it's great to have you guys here on this Monday, March 10th. We have a lot to cover on the show today. Before I get into that, I just want to remind you guys, as always, to tip or donate and get your comments recognized. Make sure to hit that super chat button in the chat if you want to see me acknowledge any thought or comment you may have throughout the live broadcast. It makes the show more lively, more entertaining between myself, the host, and you guys, the viewers. We appreciate you guys' viewership each and every day, so any contribution you can make to the show means the world to us as we put out content for you guys each and every day. And also, the other way to help out the show is by going to the link at the bottom of the show segment on the ticker, GSMCPodcast.net. That is GSMCPodcast.net. So, let's get into what we are going to discuss for today. So, a lot of NFL topics to discuss today. So, we're going to start off the show. We're going to talk about the Rams signing Davante Adams to their receiving core. We will talk about the impact of that move and what are the updates with Cooper Kupp, what's going to happen with him, because we are still waiting on whether he's going to be traded or he could be released. We'll talk about that to start off the show here. Then in the second part of the show, we'll talk about some NBA stuff from over the weekend. So we'll talk about Nikola Jokić and his performance over the weekend against the Suns, doing something that has never been done in NBA history. And then we will also talk about, in the same segment, talk about LeBron and his groin injury and how that impacts the Lakers going forward. We'll get into that. We will also talk about, in the third segment, we will get into discussing a couple of AFC North things that happened over the weekend. So we'll talk about the Steelers acquiring DK Metcalf from the Seahawks. So he will be joining their receiving core. He also did receive an extension as well. So we're going to get into that and the impact of that trade, and also update you on the Steelers' QB search and update you on what's happening there. And then we'll get into something that I didn't expect because of initial reports, and that's Myles Garrett agreeing to a contract extension with the Cleveland Browns, and now this makes him the highest paid non-QB in NFL history. So we'll get into that, and then I will continue my season overviews. Today we will be talking about the Minnesota Vikings. So that will be what we do for the show. So let's get into the first topic, which is talking about the Rams signing Davante Adams. So this is a 2-year deal, and I believe I think he's getting $26 million guaranteed, and the contract itself as a whole, that comes out to, I want to say, is it $46 million? It's in the 40s. So it's 2 years, $46 million, $26 million guaranteed. And he's coming off of another 1,000-yard season combined between the Raiders and the Jets. And it's an interesting move because Davante Adams is older than Cooper Kupp. So I know a lot of people were talking about that on social media and saying how, they're letting go of Kupp, but they're bringing in an older receiver. Well, there's a couple of things, a couple of reasons why this move was made. And one of them, and it makes sense, is availability. Cooper Kupp has missed a significant amount of time over the last few years. Davante Adams has missed games at least once over the last few seasons due to injury, but not to the extent of Cooper Kupp. And this goes back to 2022. 2022, he gets hurt, misses, the last portion of that season, but that was a lost season anyways. Then he missed the beginning part of 2023, and then got off to a really good start that Sunday night against the Lions, played really well, especially when Puka Nacua got hurt, and then he got hurt the following week. And then he was out for a while. So that's part of it. Davante Adams, he'll miss maybe a game or two, and then he's back in. And the other thing, too, is he's a big target in the red zone. And that's something that the Rams struggled with, is scoring, inside the 20. That's something that they struggled with, and Davante Adams is a big guy, He's a big wide receiver that Matthew Stafford could throw the ball up to. Still got gas left in the tank. And, you saw last year how the Rams looked when their top wide receivers were down. And then once Puka Nacua and Cooper Kupp came back, it was a completely different offense. And I do think right now at this point, you can say Davante Adams is an upgrade over this current version of Cooper Kupp. And you pair him up now with Puka Nacua, who is one of the best receivers in the league. He's turning into that. You got Matthew Stafford back. You got a good running game with Kyren Williams. And you got this young defense that really played well down the stretch. And, of course, Sean McVay is the head coach. Definitely interesting, but Davante Adams wanted to go back to the West Coast, and he wasn't going back to the Raiders. That wasn't happening. The 49ers maybe could have been an option, but, they're kind of trying to rework their cap situation, and, they got some other things they have to worry about with, their quarterback, paying him. And we will talk about that at some point this week with the negotiations with Brock Purdy. But, you also heard the Chargers were an option. But I think also Davante Adams wants to win. And of the teams out on the West Coast, you could say the 49ers, but the Rams. They won the division last year. They came very close to advancing to the championship game. Many people would say they would have beaten the Commanders. They would have got to the Super Bowl, and who knows what would have happened. So I think this is a good spot for him. I know we heard that, if Stafford was traded, Rodgers and Davante Adams could end up in L.A. But I wasn't sure Davante was going to end up on the Rams by himself. And that's because I thought, the Rams, they're trading an older wide receiver who's in his 30s, who's now 30. I think he's 30 exact, Cooper Kupp. I didn't expect them to bring in another receiver of this magnitude in Davante Adams. And that's what they did. And I do think it's an upgrade. And I'm really excited to see what the duo of Puka Nacua and Davante Adams has in store for us. I think it gives some fantasy owners a headache. Because now you go into the draft next year and you're like, what's going to happen? Davante Adams is going to command a lot of targets. But I think you still look at Puka Nacua as the number one guy. But Davante, he's going to get his red zone targets. He's going to get some touchdowns next year. It's going to be fun to watch. So I do like this move. I definitely do think this is a needle mover. I think this is an upgrade for the Rams. And you still have some younger wide receivers. They re-signed Tutu Atwell. Whittington is supposed to take on a larger role. Maybe they address that position in the draft. They add another young receiver. Because that's what I thought they were going to do. I thought they were just going to bring in a young receiver. But they don't do that. But I like like I said, I like this move. Let me know what you guys think, though, about this move for the Rams. How do you feel about it? For Cooper Kupp, I do kind of feel bad. And this is a business. We know that. But I do feel bad because I would have liked to have seen them figure this out before they signed Davante Adams. You release him or you trade him because you're just prolonging this. And is it too late to maybe figure something out? Because now imagine this offense with Puka Nacua, Davante Adams, and Cooper Kupp. That's the best receiving core in the NFL, in my opinion. But that's not the case. They're still trying to figure things out. And I think people are just going to end up waiting. Teams are going to end up waiting until he's released. I think that's what's just going to end up happening. But we'll have to see what happens. But let me know what you guys think about this for the Rams. How do you feel about it? I think this is a good signing. But this isn't the only thing that happened over the weekend. There was a ton of things and extensions and trades. That's why the NFL is superior to all the other sports, because even when it's the off season, they still find a way to make headlines. But we are going to take a break from the NFL because we are going to discuss what happened in the NBA over the weekend. A couple of major things that happened with Nikola Jokić and his performance over the weekend against the Suns. And then we're also going to talk about what happened with LeBron getting hurt against the Celtics, a groin injury that's going to keep him out. But I don't think it's something, it doesn't seem like it's something that's, you're going to hit the panic button with the Lakers. So a couple of NBA topics when we come back, but yeah, there was a ton of stuff that happened over the weekend in the NFL. And some of it we're not even going to get to today. You know, Josh Allen got an extension, but I wanted to save some of it for tomorrow so we could, we have some topics that we can go over tomorrow and not just jam it all into one show today. I mean, we probably could have, but I like to, I want to spread things out a little bit. So that's something we'll get into tomorrow. But yeah, I mean, the DK Metcalf stuff, him going to the Steelers and Myles Garrett getting an extension. I mean, who saw that coming? He was going to get an extension. I just didn't think it was going to be with the Browns the way things were trending towards. So yeah, we're going to get into all of that in the show today. The Josh Allen extension we're going to get to tomorrow. But when we come back from our first break, we will talk about Nikola Jokić making history and the LeBron James injury and the concern level of that. So make sure to stick around, and we'll be right back here on the GSMC Sports Podcast.
I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind? Please, Lord, give me a sign, a sign. I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind? Please, Lord, give me a sign, a sign.
I wanna be the greatest. Everybody on the fake shit. I look around and feel like everybody is the fakest. I make this every day and I'm impatient, hoping one day I blow up from the basement. Statement, the top is so vacant. I don't hear shit that I think is amazing. Waiting for my day when I'm playing sold out shows for 1,000 faces. Hey, give me that crown, get in my way and to be put down. It ain't your place, all this my town. If I want that shit, then I'll get it right now. I'm losing it, the noose it fits, I'm losing shit. A stupid myth, you choose to live or choose to dip. You choose to fight or lose your grip and lose a gift.
I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind? Please, Lord, give me a sign, a sign. I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind?
All right, and we are back here on the GSMC Sports Podcast, and for the second part of the show, we're going to talk some NBA, things that happened over the weekend, particularly Nikola Jokic's performance against the Suns and LeBron's injury and the impact of that. So, Nikola Jokić did something that has never happened in an NBA game. He recorded 30 points, 20 rebounds, and 20 assists in the same game. And this season, he is averaging a triple-double. He has been unbelievable. He's the best player in the league. Many people look at him as being that. And this was in a 149-141 victory over the Suns on Friday. So his exact numbers, he finished with 31 points, 31 rebounds, and 22 assists. He went 13 of 22 from the field, 3 of 7 from 3. And actually, I think he was questionable going into the game because he was dealing with a little bit of an injury himself. But, I mean, this is unbelievable. And like I said, averaging a triple-double this year, he's averaging 28.8 points per game, 10.5 assists per game, and then 12.9 rebounds. Now, he's still the underdog in the MVP race. Shai Gilgeous-Alexander of the Thunder right now is the favorite. But, I mean, it would not shock me if Jokić gets the award this year. because I think this would be his fourth MVP. Yeah, so he's already a three-time MVP, and many people would say this should be his fifth because when Joel Embiid won it, people said Jokic should have won it then. So, I mean, he's just unbelievable, and you would like to see him maybe add another ring to his resume. I mean, he already is an NBA champion, but that just would continue to build up his resume even more. And right now, the Nuggets as a team, looking at the overall big picture, so they're 41-22, and they are, I think they're still, are they the third seed or are the Grizzlies? No, the Grizzlies are the 4. They're a game behind. But now the Nuggets have tied the Lakers for the second seed again. And I think based off of what has happened now with the LeBron injury, Nuggets are probably going to end up passing them. And, I mean, who knows? I mean, the Lakers still have Luka. But the Lakers are going to miss LeBron for a little bit, as their winning streak ended on Saturday against the Celtics. But this kind of stuff is just unheard of with what Jokic is doing. Like, could this ever happen again in a game? I mean, maybe it can, but Jokic would have to be the player that does it. And also, he surpassed Wilt Chamberlain's record for the most assists by a center. And he was responsible for 35 of Denver's 57 field goals made and nearly half of their 43 rebounds. And yeah, he was questionable before the game due to an ankle injury. And also, you could add a few steals that he had in the game, and he played 45 minutes. But like I said, still kind of the underdog in the MVP race, but makes a strong case. He's third all-time in career triple-doubles with 159, and he could surpass Russell Westbrook, who's at 202. I think he should be able to do that. No problem. But that was a high-scoring affair between the Nuggets and the Suns. And now looking at the rest of their season here. So actually, they played the Thunder yesterday, and they lost 127-103. And Jokic had 24 in that game. Almost had another triple-double. He had 13 rebounds, 24 points, 9 assists. He fell shy of that. And then for Shea, 40 points. And Shea is averaging almost 33 points per game. I mean, it's like every day. Between him and Jason Tatum, it's like they put up 30 to 40 plus points every game. Shea was at 40, and then he had 41 against Memphis, 51, 31, 31 points, 27, 39, 37. I mean, he puts up a monster game almost every single time. So, yeah, that happened. But now they play again against the Thunder tonight. So we'll see if they can bounce back there. So let's kind of get into the LeBron injury now. So this was, I think it happened in the third quarter of the Celtics-Lakers game. LeBron took himself out of the game. Now this was on Saturday night. This was a big game, Lakers-Celtics. Could it be a finals preview? So this was actually it looks like it might have been the fourth quarter. But it was definitely in the second half. And LeBron left with 22 points and 14 rebounds and 9 assists. So he came close to getting a triple-double himself as well. But this was tie game after the first quarter. Celtics kind of took a commanding lead at one point. And then the Lakers, came back, made it close. But, once we got to the fourth quarter, Lakers did make it a little bit interesting. But Celtics ended up winning by 10. And Luka finished with 34 points. Jason Tatum, like I said, 40 points. He had 35 against Philly. I mean, it just seems like he always has like a 30, 40 plus game. But that's the Celtics. I mean, they are a really good team. Now, as for the LeBron injury, it doesn't seem like it's a huge concern. He doesn't seem overly concerned about it. This is something that he's dealt with before, and it's something that's happened while he's been on the Lakers. I think his first year with the Lakers, he brought up. So it doesn't seem overly concerning. He's going to be back. And here's the thing. The Lakers have a star player in Luka. So I think he's more than capable of carrying the load until LeBron gets back. But if LeBron was out, going into the playoffs, then, the Lakers title run really is not going to happen. Because you need to have LeBron James healthy for the postseason. He has to be there. And we all know this. But you do worry because obviously he's playing into his 40s. And you don't want this to become a common thing. But it happens. And, Luka is going to step up. I know he will. And, you're getting production out of Austin Reeves. And, watching the game against the Knicks, when I did, Jackson Hayes makes plays as well. Luka and LeBron find him. They're going to have guys step up off the bench. Dalton Connect and Gabe Vincent, those guys. So I think the Lakers are going to be okay. Now, I think they will drop in the standings, but they're still going to be a playoff team, and they're going to get LeBron back, and they're going to be all right. Now, they do have some tough games coming up on the schedule. Now, they do have the Nets tonight, so I do think they should win that game, but you never know. But then you got the Bucks and the Nuggets. That's going to be tough. The Suns, I think, will be a tough game, with the big three. Then you got the Spurs. Then you got the Nuggets and the Bucks again, but this time they're at home, and the Lakers are good at home. But then the schedule kind of lightens up a little bit because you got the Bulls, the Magic. Pacers is going to be tough. Then you got the Bulls again. The Grizzlies, the Rockets. That's tough. And then when you get to April, you got the Warriors, the Pelicans, the Thunder twice, the Mavericks, the Rockets, and Portland. So a lot of playoff teams coming up on the schedule. And like I said, when talking about the Nuggets, the Lakers and the Nuggets are tied for second in the Western Conference, but then you got the Grizzlies right behind them, who are 1 game back. The Rockets are 2 games back. And the Warriors, they just don't lose since they got Jimmy Butler. 9-1 in their last 10 games. They've won 4 straight. If the Warriors keep winning, they can make things a little bit interesting now with those higher seeds. So, if the Lakers slip up a little bit without LeBron, anything can happen. But no, they're still going to finish in the top 6. They might not be the 2 seed, but they should be at least, the 3 or the 4. And now, if this happened, if LeBron got hurt and they had Anthony Davis, well, I'd feel a little bit different on this subject. But mainly because Anthony Davis has his own injury issues. But I think with Luka, as long as they have him, they're going to be in every single game. And I think they will be able to tread water. I think they'll do more than just tread water until LeBron comes back. And then, they'll be ready for the postseason. Just as long as he's ready for the postseason. Because if he's not, then, we're out on the Lakers. But let me know what you guys think, though, about what happened over the weekend. Jokić and his weekend, LeBron getting hurt. Do you think that Lakers-Celtics game was a finals preview? Let me know in the comments. But before we go to break, just want to remind you guys once again to tip or donate and get your comments recognized. Make sure to hit that super chat button in the chat if you want to see me acknowledge any thought or comment you may have throughout the live broadcast. It makes the show more lively, more entertaining between myself, the host, and you guys, the viewers. We appreciate you guys' viewership each and every day, so any contribution you can make to the show means the world to us as we put out content for you guys each and every day. And also, the other way to help out the show is by going to the link at the bottom of the show segment on the ticker, GSMCPodcast.net. That is GSMCPodcast.net. So, when we come back from our next break. We'll get back to football. We will talk about the DK Metcalf trade. Steelers acquired DK Metcalf, what that means for this team, and also I will talk about the quarterback situation and give you some updates on that. So, with that being said, stick around, and we'll be right back here on the GSMC Sports Podcast.
Looking for your daily fix of sports talk without having to pay for it? GSMC Sports Network is available on YouTube. Just search GSMC Sports Network. Get your fix of daily sports talk shows on YouTube, absolutely free. NFL, college football, NBA, MLB, MMA, UFC, fantasy football, and so much more. GSMC Sports Network has shows running all day long, with new sports shows starting every 2 hours. Just like on your favorite cable sports channel, except GSMC Sports Network is absolutely free. Just search GSMC Sports Network on YouTube to catch one of your new favorite shows, like the GSMC College Football Podcast, Chip Shot Football Podcast, Hoops and Heels Women's Sports Podcast, GSMC Basketball Podcast, and so many more. Check it out for yourself. GSMC Sports Network, now available on YouTube absolutely free. Search GSMC Sports Network on YouTube right now.
All right, and we are back here on the GSMC Sports Podcast, and for the third part of the show, we are now going to talk about the Steelers acquiring DK Metcalf. So this was a big trade that went down over the weekend, and this is an area that the Steelers needed to address because the receiving core was kind of lacking last season. Now, they made attempts to try to improve it. They went out and they traded for Mike Williams, but they barely used him. I did like what I saw out of Calvin Austin at times last year. And, of course, you still have George Pickens. So you add Metcalf now, and now you got two guys out on the perimeter that, are 50-50 guys. You could throw those. If they bring back Russ, he could throw those moon balls up to DK Metcalf like the old days. But I do like this move. Now, I think the money, a lot of people were kind of scratching their heads over the contract because, you look at DK Metcalf and you say, is he a top 10 receiver? Probably is outside the top 10. The Steelers did give up a second-round pick. This upcoming draft, they gave up their second-round pick. And they signed Metcalf to a 5-year, $150 million deal. And he is 27. Now, you could say that the money is a little high for him. But he is coming off of a season where he had just under 1,000 yards, only had 5 touchdowns on the year. So you're hoping that you can get better production out of him in this offense. But the thing is, who's going to be playing quarterback? That's the $1 million question. Who's going to be playing quarterback for the Steelers in 2025? We still don't know yet. But I think this is something the Steelers had to make. This is a move the Steelers had to make because they needed to improve that receiving core one way or another. And it definitely makes this offense better. You got those two guys. Like I said, I liked what I saw out of Calvin Austin at times. You got Pat Freiermuth. Now, we'll see what happens with the running back situation for the Steelers because Najee Harris, I don't think is coming back. And I don't know if Jaylen Warren's coming back either. So it's going to be interesting. What did I just see on Instagram before? So the Steelers have placed a second-round tender on Jaylen Warren, which is worth over $5 million. This gives the Steelers a chance to match any offer that Warren receives in free agency. So we'll see if the Steelers end up keeping him, which I think they probably will because they need to do something with the running back position. Now, I think this could be a case where they bring back Warren and then you draft someone to pair up with him. I don't think they're going to go and bring in another running back unless they bring back Najee Harris, which I don't think is going to happen. Also, a couple of other things. So, the Chargers, they re-signed Khalil Mack. The Panthers, they gave their top corner, J.C. Horn, a 4-year extension, $100 million. The Falcons, they released Grady Jarrett, longtime defensive tackle for the team. after 10 seasons, coming off of a down year, so it kind of makes sense. So that also happened. This happened before some of this stuff happened before we went to break, but I thought I'd just bring those up as well. So, yeah, back to the Metcalf stuff. Who's going to be throwing on the ball, though? Now, I did make the prediction that they were going to bring back Fields, but now we're not so sure. We're not so sure on that. Because there were some reports that came out that, well, for one thing, and this is, kind of a given, and that's, the money. Justin Fields wants a big contract. And the Steelers have a number, Fields has a number, and they got to try to work their way to maybe agreeing upon something that makes them all happy. So there's that. But the other thing, too, is if they bring back Fields, are they committed to making him the starter? Or are they going to bring in someone else to compete with Justin Fields for the job? Now, they're not going to bring back Russ if they bring back Justin Fields. It's one or the other. But you saw what happened last year. The Steelers were playing well with Justin Fields. They were winning football games. And then Mike Tomlin said, all right, we're going back to Russ. Even though Russ didn't play at all for the Steelers in the regular season, they said, we're going back to Russ no matter what. And they did that. And I think Justin Fields, it seems like he's worrying that could happen again, that the Steelers aren't going to be committed to him if they were to bring him back, because maybe they bring in someone else. And maybe not. But that's something that I saw. That maybe the Steelers bring in competition. Maybe Justin Fields thinks that the Steelers are not going to be committed to him for the whole season. If the Steelers go through maybe a bad stretch, maybe they, make a change or something, depending on what they do, what else they do. And maybe he wants to go somewhere where he knows that, hey, I'm going to be the starter, no matter what. But I would like to see Fields go back to the Steelers. I think it makes sense. But who knows? The Jets supposedly are in on Fields. They need a quarterback. I would not want to see them going into the season with Tyrod Taylor being their starter. If they get Fields, all right, then we got something. And it's no knock on Tyrod. It's just, why do you want to go into a season with Tyrod Taylor as your quarterback? But if they don't bring back Fields, you still got Russell Wilson out there. And this is another thing we're going to talk about tomorrow, and that's Geno Smith being traded over the weekend. He ended up getting traded to the Raiders. So that takes the Raiders out of, any other veteran option. Now, they could, if a quarterback falls to them where they're picking, they'll probably go that route, maybe. But they got Geno now. So, that closes the door on the Raiders maybe adding another veteran quarterback, but that opens up a possibility for the Seahawks now, who have a hole at quarterback. And I said that I thought Russ would maybe go to the Raiders and join up with Pete Carroll, but that did not happen. Instead, they go and they get another Seattle quarterback, and the current Seattle quarterback, and they now have him with the Raiders. So Russ could go back to the Steelers. I think, now I was thinking the way things were going, things we were hearing, that Aaron Rodgers could end up maybe with the Giants. But we'll see what happens there. Russ, the Giants brought in last year for a visit, and then he ended up going to the Steelers. So Russ could go back to the Steelers. That's possible. Now, I don't know. But now there's some reports out there that Rodgers and the Steelers are expected to talk, according to a new report. So we'll see what happens there. I know Matt, who is currently the new football host for GSMC, he would not be happy with that. He wants them to bring back Justin Fields. And, as a Giant fan and a Rodgers fan, I would like to see Aaron Rodgers play for the Giants, even if it's just for 1 year. because of just the level of quarterback play that the Giants have seen over the years. And if you bring in Aaron Rodgers for 1 year and you have a young quarterback sitting behind him that can learn from him, I'd sign up for that. I would. But that's just me. But I do think the Steelers, and the Steelers, they could maybe go after Sam Darnold. I think that's also on the table. But I think Justin Fields is probably their best option. I think he showed you what he could do last year, and now you bring in DK Metcalf to improve that receiving core. And also Justin Fields is mobile. Russell Wilson does not have the same mobility he once did. Rodgers, he showed you when he was healthy, he still has a little bit of mobility. I mean, Russ showed you too at times. But Justin Fields, he's a guy that can make things happen with his legs too. So, I think they should try to work things out. But if not, then, maybe they go with the veteran. They go with Russ again, or if they go with Rodgers, maybe. We'll see. But let me know what you guys think, though, about the DK Metcalf trade, and what do you think the Steelers are going to do at quarterback. It's going to be very interesting to see how that all plays out. And, you kind of see what's going on over in Cincinnati and with the Browns. I mean, whatever the Steelers do, I think overall as a team, I think you still, based off of how poor the Bengals defense was last year, I mean, if they play their cards right, the Steelers are going into the year at least as the second best team in the division again. Because I don't like what I'm seeing out of the Bengals, that now they're just saying, all right, Trey Hendrickson, go seek out a trade. You're going to trade your best defensive player. When that was that side of the ball was the weakness of the team. So they're going all in on offense. But defensively, they're going to have to nail their draft picks. So if the Steelers do play their cards right, they will be, at least in my eyes, the second best team in the division again. To only the Ravens. I mean, again, that's just me. We're very early on in the process, and we will see what happens this week, because we are going to see more stuff. There's going to be stuff that happens when we get off here today, and I'll be like, man, I wish I was on while that was going on. But I'll have to keep checking social media periodically, especially during the breaks, in case something happens, something major goes down. But Davante Adams and DK Metcalf have gotten things going when it comes to the receivers. And there's still some other receivers out there. You got Chris Godwin, who's out there. Brandon Cooks is a free agent. Stephon Diggs. We'll see what happens with T. Higgins. Could Brandon Ayuk be traded now? We did see Deebo Samuel also get traded, so that kind of got the ball rolling as well. And Christian Kirk was traded. But yeah, Davante Adams was probably the first major signing, because we've had 3 of the 4 wide receiver moves that I just mentioned, they were all trades. Deebo, Kirk, and now DK. So now we got to see where these quarterbacks are going to end up. Rodgers, Russ, Sam Darnold, Fields, Kirk Cousins supposedly, he met with, well, not supposedly, but he did meet with Arthur Blank. He wants to go somewhere and start. So he could end up being traded or, released. We'll see. Falcons want to keep him as a backup, but it's not going to happen. So, yeah, let me know what you guys think, though. We are going to take our next break, though. And when we come back, we will talk about the unlikely outcome. I didn't expect this based off of what we were hearing. Many others, same thing. And that is Myles Garrett signing a contract extension with the Browns. So we will talk about that when we come back from our next break. So, with that being said, stick around, and we'll be right back here on the GSMC Sports Podcast.
For the best and latest podcasts available anywhere, go to the podcast app on your cell phone and type in GSMC to access free content-rich podcasts on health and wellness, book reviews, sports, entertainment, relationships, social media, movies, technology, finance, and even weird news. Subscribe and download the GSMC Podcast Network's family of shows, available everywhere podcasts are found.
All right, and we are back here on the GSMC Sports Podcast, and for the fourth part of the show, we are going to talk about Myles Garrett signing a massive contract extension with the Cleveland Browns. So, we've talked about this recently. The way things were trending, and what we were hearing constantly, it did not seem like Myles Garrett was going to come back to the Browns, and that no matter what the Browns would do, Myles Garrett was committed to getting out of Cleveland and going somewhere else. And he would do whatever it takes. And you were thinking, well, I was thinking, well, if he's willing to do whatever to get out of Cleveland, and the Browns don't want to trade him, they're going to be on this standoff here, and this is going to go into next season, and he could end up missing games. But of course, we were very far away from that. Anything can happen. And yeah, here we are. Myles Garrett agrees to a contract extension. Now, the specifics of the deal. So, this contract takes him through the 2030 season. So, he signed a 4-year extension with the Browns. $40 million of an annual salary. $123.5 million guaranteed. No trade clause included. And we talked about Max Crosby getting the highest paid non-quarterback contract. Well, Myles Garrett said, hold my beer. And now he is now the highest paid non-quarterback in NFL history now. And, we could sit here and say, what changed? Well, I guess the easy answer is money talks. I guess maybe Myles Garrett realized I can't pass up on this. Am I going to get a deal like this elsewhere? Maybe. Maybe if he got traded to the Eagles, they'd give him that money. Look at what they did with Saquon. But he got a big payday, and now he's looking to try to, bring in more free agents to help this Browns team. But the Browns don't have a lot of cap space. Right now, they only have a little over $4 million in cap space. So there's really not a lot of wiggle room for them at the moment. Now, that doesn't mean they can't clear more cap space, but still. Anthony in the chat, hope everything's well. He said, I think Myles Garrett played the media, NFL fans in general, those masterstroke on his part to be able to get a contract with Cleveland. Maybe, because that's all we were hearing was it's a standoff. He does not want to sign a contract extension with the Browns. He's going to do whatever he has to do to get out of Cleveland. He wants to go to a contender, and you're hearing the Eagles were in on him, the Commanders, all these teams. I mean, pretty much every team, you could say, was saying, yeah, maybe we could get Myles Garrett. But the Browns were like, nope, we are not taking any calls, and they were able to come to an agreement, and he is now going to stick around in Cleveland, and we'll see what they do with that top pick. I mean, could they go and, pair him up with Abdul Carter? Are they going to take a quarterback? Because you're hearing the Browns could take a quarterback. Maybe they don't like the quarterbacks that are in this draft. I mean, they're going to have to do something. I mean, maybe if Kirk Cousins shakes loose from Atlanta, they bring him in. Kevin Stefanski, the familiarity there. The Browns still have good players on this team, but they need to figure out this quarterback situation. Because it's not going to be Deshaun Watson. It's not. And he is the main problem with this team because this team really can't do anything because of how big his contract is. I mean, they're trying their best, to clear cap space so they can get under the cap before, the new league year officially starts. But this contract is really hurting them. And he's going to be a non-factor next year. Anthony also in the chat says, I think Micah Parsons is going to break this record when he signs his extension with the Cowboys or doing the sign and trade with another team and they sign him. Yeah, so the Cowboys and Micah Parsons have begun negotiations. I know, I'm pretty sure I saw that. Yeah, that would not surprise me. That would not surprise me. And I think I said this too on a previous show as well, that, you know, we always see, whenever these players now sign their new deals, you'll always see, oh, now this is the largest contract in NFL history. This is the, you know, the largest non-quarterback contract in NFL history. Well, it just keeps getting broke every single time, every single year. And now when the salary cap keeps going up, it's going to be the same thing. Jimmy Haslam has screwed them by signing Deshaun Watson to that massive contract. Yep, absolutely. Absolutely. This contract with Deshaun Watson has been an absolute failure. And not only that, but just giving up assets to get him. You gave up 3 first-round picks. I mean, it was one of the worst trades in NFL history. It really was. And they got to figure out the quarterback situation. You know, could they be a team that brings in a veteran instead of drafting one? I don't know. Listen, they got the number 2 overall pick. They could do a lot with that. You know, because maybe, you know, the idea, I think I floated it around because I think I heard it from somewhere, and that's, you know, if they traded Myles Garrett, then, you know, you draft Abdul Carter, and then he becomes, you know, that generational talent on defense. But I don't know. I really don't know. Because a lot of stuff you read, it could be a smokescreen, and we've said that. And also Anthony in the chat, when I say Micah Parsons breaks this record, his AAV, he's going to get paid $85 million per year. That's a lot. That's a big number. That's a really big number. I don't know about that. $85 million per year. I mean, I don't even think the Cowboys could afford to do that. You know, they really have to fix up their cap situation. But back to Myles Garrett. So he had 14 sacks last year, which was second in the NFL behind Trey Hendrickson. He had 40 solo tackles, 22 tackles for loss, 28 QB hits, 83 total pressures, and he played in every single game. Now, like I said, Browns don't have a lot of cap space. They're coming off of a year where they only won 3 games. They're picking in the top 3. They play in a tough division. Right now, because of their quarterback situation, like even with the Steelers, they don't have a quarterback right now, but I do think the Steelers are in a much better situation than the Browns are. They got to figure that out. And I would think maybe you bring in a veteran. They are going to do that. And then maybe they draft one of the quarterbacks. But then again, I don't know. I don't know. Now, Garrett's agent spoke on what changed, and he said, Andrew, Barry, and I spent the last 36 hours getting the deal done. Myles has a change of heart. He's excited to go from Cleveland to Canton and chase a championship in Ohio. When he made that decision, he said, I want to get this done before free agency so I can start recruiting free agents so I can help the team. And I said, all right, we have 24 hours to get this done, and they did it. So, and this was courtesy of WKYC.com. Yeah, I look, I was surprised. I thought that he was going to be committed to holding out and trying to get traded, but that did not happen. Like I said, money talks. Money talks. He really changed his mind. Because I just looked up, what could have changed. But it really just comes down to, hey, he got a massive contract and he could not pass it up. So he's sticking around. And I think Browns fans are relieved because if they would have lost Myles Garrett, then it's like, when are they ever going to have, again, like a franchise player that's going to stay around for their entire career in Cleveland? I mean, you had Joe Thomas. I'm talking about recently, But, yeah, I mean, I don't really know what else the Browns are going to do because, they are limited. But we'll see. We'll see. But this is, good for them. I'm happy as a Giant fan because I would not want to see him end up on the Eagles or the Commanders because that would make the Giants' lives even harder to try to get out from underneath the basement of the NFC East because they're already trying to, work their way back up, but it's going to take a lot. It's going to take a lot, especially when you have all three teams in a better situation now. And you had 2 out of the 3 make it to the championship game, and one of them just won the Super Bowl with your former running back. So, yeah, I am happy that Myles Garrett did not get traded to an NFC East team. Now, he does stay in the AFC North, and my dad's a Steelers fan, so he still has to deal with him. But, hey, who cares, No. But yeah, this is good for the Browns to get this done, but they still got a lot of needs to address, and I don't know how they're going to do it. We'll see. We will see what happens. But let me know what you guys think about the Myles Garrett deal. What are your thoughts on that? Let me know about that in the comments. And we are going to take our final break of the show now. And then when we come back, we will do a season overview on the Vikings. Talk about the kind of season they had, what they are planning on doing this offseason to try to... I mean, I don't really know how to say... I don't really know if I want to say improve. But there's some things that they have to address this offseason. I mean, they won 14 games last year. If anything, they might win less next season. But we'll talk about the season they had, some questions going into the offseason, what they can do, what positions do they need to address, whether it's in the draft or free agency. We will get into all that when we come back from our final break of the show. So, for one final time today, make sure to stick around, and we'll be right back here on the GSMC Sports Podcast. All right, and we are back here on the GSMC Sports Podcast. And for the final part of the show, we are now going to do a season overview on the Minnesota Vikings and what they will have to address this offseason, some areas that need improvement. And look, there's not really that much that they can improve on in terms of the overall roster. Now, there's one key position that there is a question mark at, which we will discuss. But overall as a team, I mean, they got a very good defense. They had a very good defense. They had a very good offense. But there are some key positions that they do have to address, particularly the offensive line, because we saw those last couple of games, against the Lions and then in the playoffs. Sorry. again, holding back a sneeze, against the Lions and then against the Rams in the playoffs, that offensive line was overwhelmed. And Sam Darnold, you could say he didn't play well, but that offensive line didn't do him any favors. So that is definitely something that they're going to have to address, whether it's in the draft or free agency. They actually did recently re-sign Aaron Jones. I know that was one thing that I might have talked about recently, is what they might do with the running back situation, because Aaron Jones was a free agent. Were they going to bring him back? But they do bring him back on a 2-year deal. He did have a good year for them, so they did address that. They got T.J. Hawkinson back late in the season. Obviously, Justin Jefferson, top receiver in the league, had another big year. Jordan Addison had a good year as well. The offense, really no complaints besides the offensive line. The defense, they could look to maybe, I was looking at, what the Vikings could use, maybe an interior defensive lineman, a corner. Secondary help could be something that they can address as well. But, going into the year, I only had the Vikings winning around maybe 6 games because I just didn't know what to expect out of the quarterback situation. Because they were going into the year with J.J. McCarthy and Sam Darnold. Then J.J. McCarthy ends up getting hurt. And then Sam Darnold takes over. And I saw Sam Darnold live, first game of the season against the Giants, and played well. And the Vikings, the only games that they lost in the regular season were to the Rams and the Lions. Yeah, the Rams and the Lions. Really, those are the only 2 teams they lost to all year. The Rams and the Lions. They got swept by the Lions, and then they lost to the Rams twice, both in the regular season and in the playoffs. Other than that, they beat everybody else. And Sam Darnold on the season, this was his best year, by far. 4,300 yards passing, 35 touchdowns to 12 picks. He was solid, and he's going to get paid this offseason. Now, I don't know what's going to happen if he's going to go back to Minnesota. I made that prediction, but now all of a sudden Seattle now has a quarterback spot that's opened up, and that could be a possible suitor. So we'll see what happens there, but he's kind of been a journeyman the last couple of seasons. He gets traded to Carolina, then he spends 2 seasons there. Yeah, spends 2 seasons there. Then he's the backup to Brock Purdy. Didn't really play that much. And then he goes to the Vikings, plays really well. And, he's going to earn this contract that he gets. But, you have these conversations on, well, where's he going to end up? Because he could end up going to a team and not being a starter. But I think he wants to start. I think he's earned that right, but it's going to be where is it now? Like I said, Seattle has opened up a spot. But I think, wherever he ends up, even if he goes back to Minnesota, there's going to be competition there. J.J. McCarthy is going to be healthy. And, you're hearing that the Vikings want to move forward with him. You're also hearing that maybe, Darnold comes back. Maybe they trade J.J. McCarthy. I don't know. He could also maybe go to the Colts and compete with Anthony Richardson because they want to bring in competition. The Titans need a quarterback, but I don't know who's going to go there. They can end up just bringing back Mason Rudolph and just have him and Will Levis compete. Or maybe the Titans take a QB in this draft. And their competition for Will Levis. But, like I said, they brought back Aaron Jones. He had 1,100 yards rushing, 5 rushing touchdowns. He was good for them this year. He did miss some time due to injury. Justin Jefferson was unbelievable. He could play with whoever. Doesn't matter. At quarterback. 1,500 yards receiving, 103 receptions, 10 touchdowns. Jordan Addison had 875 receiving yards and 9 touchdowns. T.J. Hawkinson coming back late in the year. He had 455 receiving yards. He's going to have a better year next year, being back the whole year. Jalen Naylor had 6 touchdowns on the season. Kind of that third wide receiver option. And then on the defensive side of the ball, Andrew Van. I don't know why I keep saying Anthony, but Andrew Van Ginkel had a good season. Had some pick sixes. One was against the Giants. One was against the Jets. You also had Blake Cashman, who had 4.5 sacks. And also, Van Ginkel had 11.5 sacks on the season. Jonathan Grenard, who they got over from Houston, he was a good signing. He had 12 sacks on the season. Patrick Jones, their other defensive end, he had 7 sacks on the season. Vikings defense was solid. And, they did come up flat the final 2 games. You expected them to do more. I mean, you expected the NFC North to do more as a whole. That was the best division. And they didn't win a single playoff game. You had the Vikings and the Lions coming down to the last game of the regular season. And both teams were at 14 wins. And whoever won that game would get home field, a bye, which ended up being the Lions. And the Vikings ended up being the 5th seed as a 14-win team. And then they had to go on the road. They didn't play the Rams in L.A. They played them in Arizona because of all the wildfires that were going on. And the Rams dominated them in that game. That game was never close. The game against the Lions, the Vikings had opportunities, but they ended up not taking advantage of those opportunities, particularly near the goal line, and ended up losing. And that's kind of why people are hesitant, I think, also to maybe pursue Sam Darnold. I think Sam Darnold's going to end up with a team. It's just, who's that going to be? But like I said, there's some areas that they need to address. The quarterback situation, though, what's going to happen? Are they going to bring back Sam Darnold, or are they just going to ride with J.J. McCarthy? And we saw them move off of Kirk Cousins last offseason. So wouldn't be surprised if they take the same course of action here and just let Sam Darnold walk, say, hey, we appreciate what you did for this team, but we're moving on with J.J. McCarthy. He's our future. I don't know. My logic is you bring back Darnold if you're able to, if the price is right, and you let J.J. McCarthy sit, and then, at some point maybe you go to him. But at the same time, is Darnold going to want that? Darnold wants to go and start. And I don't blame him for feeling that way. He had a good year. But if I'm an NFL team, I'd be hesitant to give him big money. I think he does deserve to get a contract because of how he played last year. But also, if I'm an NFL team, I'd be worried to give him a multi-year deal and commit to him and make him my starter, because he only did this for 1 year. And he did it for a team that is loaded. If he came back to New York and played for the Giants or the Jets, he's not doing that. He's going to regress. And yeah, you could say, well, duh, of course he is. But Sam Darnold has to be in a good situation to be successful. And he was in a very good situation. But then what happened when he got to the playoffs? It's going to be interesting what they do there. Again, there could be a scenario where they bring back Darnold and then they trade J.J. McCarthy. But who knows? Now, going into this year, though, 2025, the division, I would imagine, is going to be better. I think the Bears are going to be a better team. They've improved their offensive line. I think, if Jordan Love is healthy next year and the Packers can upgrade at receiver, they're going to be back. And then you got the Lions. Now, they did lose Aaron Glenn and Ben Johnson. So how is Dan Campbell going to, address this? What kind of coaching staff are we going to be looking at next year? But they still got a ton of talent on this team. Aiden Hutchinson is coming back from his injury. This is going to be a tough division. I don't think the Vikings are winning 14 games. Now, I don't think they're going to be winning 6 next year. We got to see what they end up doing. But this is a well-coached team, and I think they will be a competitive team once again next year. And like I said, there's not really that much they really have to address. But yeah, the offensive line, based off of what happened the last couple of games, that's a position that's an area that they need to clear up. But let me know what you guys think, though, about the Vikings season. What were your takeaways from it? Let me know in the comments. And that is pretty much it for the show for today. Thank you guys for tuning in. We'll see what else happens over the next, day or so. I mean, things are really going to start happening this week. A lot of free agency stuff. But there's stuff I didn't get to today that I'll get to tomorrow. We'll talk about the Geno Smith trade. We'll talk about Josh Allen's extension. Also, we didn't get into baseball stuff, but there's some more major Yankee news, and it's not good. It is not good. And you guys know what I'm talking about, I'm sure. But things are quickly taking a downward spiral for the baseball team that I root for. And I'm losing optimism on the season. And the season hasn't even started yet. So that'll be discussed tomorrow. We'll do a season overview on the Lions as well. So that'll be the last team that we cover in the NFC North. And then we'll move on to the NFC West. So moving along with that. But there's a lot more moves that are coming when talking about the NFL. We haven't even scratched the surface yet. But there's stuff coming. There's going to be more trades, I would imagine, signings. There's going to be a lot happening over the next week, and we will make sure to cover all that. And of course, sprinkle in all the other sports as well. We did talk some NBA today with, the Lucas stuff and not the Lucas stuff, the Jokić stuff, and LeBron getting hurt. The NBA action tonight. You got the Knicks and the Kings playing late. Actually, Nuggets and Thunder again. We did talk about that before. So there are some good games on tonight. The Suns have a big game tonight against the Grizzlies if they want to try to make the playoffs or the play-in. So, yeah, we're moving right along here. But I hope you guys enjoyed the show today. We'll be back again tomorrow. Make sure to check out all the other shows as well on the network. Make sure to give the other shows some love, like I always say. Make sure to subscribe to our channels. Make sure to leave a like and comment on our videos. And until next time, I'm Kenneth Grunfelder signing off from the GSMC Sports Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Sports Network. Have a good day, and I will talk to you guys tomorrow. Take care.
Let's go. I wake up to a little bit of drool on my pillow, feel like it's gonna be a bad day. Yeah, I'm tired of shit, and the coffee